Alrighty, happy Saturday evening with Con, everybody. As we start, the wacky world of Japanese shovelware games, created by me, Jackson Bell, aka Crazy Games Made Dirt Cheap, aka an excuse me to finally talk about these games. But before we truly start, we must ask ourselves one thing. What even is shovelware anyway? Well, the term shovelware has been around since the early 90s, during a time when personal computers came with disks that were bundled with a ton of crappy games ported on the cheap. The term itself came from how these lower games felt like they had been shoveled onto systems without quality control, though they were also called crapware and trashware. Shovelware is just catchy that way. In short, shovelware games rely more on quantity over quality, with some game publishers preferring to release a ton of cheaply made games for as little money as possible to ensure sales. The more stuff, the better, because that's what shovelware tends to be, stuff. Now, when one thinks of shovelware games, they probably think of licensed games made for pennies for consoles everybody owns, original IPs with bizarre premises that don't live up to whatever potential they could have had, games made to cash in on fads and gimmicky innovations, often featuring a has-been celebrity's involvement, or games made using stock art or engine assets with little to no quality control, maybe throwing a misleading trailer to really drum up the revenue. Most of these types of games today can be found on Steam, the PSN store, and even the Nintendo eShop. And don't get me started on mobile games. Now, most of these games are made by Western studios. Not even Japan is safe from them. Because while the Japanese game industry is mostly known for its quality titles, they too have made such gems as The Mahjong, Party Carnival, and The Aga Champion. So here's the thing. When Japan puts out shovelware, they do it with style, gusto. I'll cut off the rest. But the majority of them can be traced back to one specific company, D3 Publisher. Founded in 1982 and still going strong to this very day, D3 is a game publishing company who specializes in all kinds of low-budget releases. They are the king of not just Japanese shovelware, but shovelware released worldwide. Their resume ranges from shovelware budget titles like cheap minigame collections, moving tiny games, and for a while, games based on Cartoon Network shows. D3 is the biggest proprietor of most Japanese shovelware. In fact, it's basically their MO. If you couldn't tell from the fact that they're still up and running, it's been working out for them. So the biggest cash cow comes in the form of the Simple series. For those who don't know, the Simple series is a series of unconnected budget titles made by a few different developers using small budgets, small development teams, and relatively simple, if very derivative concepts. Seriously, some of these installments can be considered knockoffs for other popular games around that time. They often use stuff like sexual appeal and odd premises to entice people to purchase them, which is easy to do considering their incredibly low price tags. Not only were they cheap to make, they were cheap to purchase, costing less than $25 to buy at retail. As a result, the Simple series contains hundreds and hundreds of installments, and can be found on systems like the PlayStation, the Game Boy Advance, and the Wii. Though a great majority of the Simple titles happen left Japan, hell, I see about 5% of them have been released in North America. Some of them did get English releases in Europe, though. However, the Simple series started winding down during the PS3 era, where games were starting to get more expensive to develop, so these smaller studios couldn't crank out as many in a short amount of time as they used to. Some are still being made. They released some new installments for the Switch a few years ago, but just not as much as before, and they're not as memorable. Nonetheless, the series has developed somewhat of a cult following for its silly premises, low budgets, and willingness to experiment. And the cool thing about Japanese shovelware is that some of these games can spawn full-fledged franchises. Games like Onichan Bar and Earth Defense Force started out as Simple series titles, but they've proved so popular they've been able to continue thriving to this day, with new installments and other forms of media can continue to be pumped out. And with decent-sized budgets too. Like, they actually have animated cutscenes now. I know, right? But it's all had to come from somewhere. So let's start from the very beginning, with the Simple 1500 series. This is the first iteration of the Simple series. 1500 was called that because each game cost 1,500 yen to make, which is about $15. Due to be released on an old console like the PlayStation 1, the games are very limited in scope, hardware, and budget. As long as you have a team of at least 3 people, you can make whatever kind of game you wanted. Since they were released for the PlayStation 1, these games are extremely simplistic in concept. Like, you know what you're going to get into by looking at titles like The Billiard, or The Gun Shooting 2, or The Race. As such, a lot of them are extremely superficial, games you play for 10 minutes and lose interest in them. And because of that, over 104 installments were released during the PlayStation's life cycle, 1997 to 2002. But with the PlayStation 2 on the rise, D3 decided to bring the Simple series to a new era of console development. Did they get better? No, silly, because that's how we got the Simple 2000 series, but it's got a whole lot wackier. These new games, now costing 2,000 yen, aka $20, have slightly bigger budgets and working with improved hardware, which meant more opportunities for developers to make whatever kind of game they wanted, even if they didn't have the resources or talent for it. Simple 2000 spanned over 122 installments, and that's not counting subdivisions or spin-offs. Now the biggest thing here is that, let's say, if you and several other studios need to release a lot of games within a few years, you're going to make what everything comes to mind. You're going to have to come up with an idea for a game that will get made, no matter how weird the premise is, because your bosses want to put out more stuff in a short amount of time. Time is money, or yen in this case. You better start thinking. And that's why the Simple 2000 series will be the main subject of this panel, because a lot of Japan's crazy shovelware titles come from this very series. But before we can start, I want to say a few things first. When it comes to the games we're about to witness, I want y'all to expect 1. Zero production values, because when I say cheap, I mean cheap. 2. Simple storytelling, meaning lack of serious cutscenes, animations, or a thorough narrative that isn't comprised of still images. Those who try to tell a story often end up failing spectacularly, and we're going to see one of those that did try and fail. 3. Game design that ranges from experimental to just plain weird. After all, low budgets and having to put out something, anything, meant the ability to take more risks. But there's a reason why no other game has attempted to replicate any of these titles. And lastly, no F's given. These games are made the way the designers intended, and they do not care about your feelings or opinions about them. So without further ado, let's start with our very first title, one of the most infamous of the bunch, Demolition Girl. Or as it's called in Japan, the Daigijin, which translates to the Giant Beauty. It's volume 50 of the Simple 2000 series, and developed by Tamsoft, primarily focused on fan service fighting games like Summon and Kagura and the Ikkicon games, plus a whole bunch of Simple's 2000 titles like the Onita series. The game stars D3's mascot, Riho Futaba, a fictional bikini model who can be considered the face of the Simple series. She's in quite a few games. The premise? Riho, while on vacation, becomes a giant after encountering an alien jellyfish. As she terrorizes the Okinawa island, it's up to the Japanese National Guard to get her back to normal and put a stop to the aliens. It's an inspired plot, to say the least.
Can I just say real quick, the Japanese version starts with an animated intro cutscene setting the premise, whereas the English version instead has this. Yeah. So the game has you taking control of a member of the National Guard. Throughout the game, your mission is to find a way to subdue the giant Riho in numerous ways, which apparently includes obtaining her breast measurements, shooting a crap load of misleading missiles into specific parts of her body with some of the worst aiming controls you'll ever experience, saving her from being kidnapped by aliens, blasting the crap out of a parasitic jellyfish alien taking over her mind, shooting her with a tank, and finally launching missiles at her that cause her to shrink back to normal. Well, after fighting this thing, that is. But the day is saved, and Riho goes back to being a regular pinup girl. Yay. Oh, and the game assures you that Riho won't be legally prosecuted for causing massive damage because she doesn't remember the past few days.
In case you were wondering. So moving on to our next game, we have Maze Action. Or as it's called in Japan, Gekito Meiru King, which translates to Fierce Battle, Maze King. This is volume 8 of the Simple 2000 series Ultimate. The spin-off division consisting of over 34 games that weren't all that different from the previous titles. I mean, I guess they were more concerned about multiplayer games in the regular series. So is that, I guess. Now this game was actually developed by D3 themselves, which didn't happen much. You'll soon see why. The game's basically a remake of a Simple 1500 title, the Meiru. Yeah, some of these Simple titles were so derivative of not only other games, but themselves as well. The premise is that 4 graduates of a hero academy, not the one y'all thinking of, must earn their academy's recognition by completing their final assignment, which is a deadly fight inside several underground mazes.
So you basically choose between 4 characters who look like they all came from separate games. I mean, look at this guy, and look at her. Once you pick your fighter and opponent, the game begins. And you'll immediately notice that the game uses a split screen where most of your vision is taken up by a rather cluttered UI. You're on the left, your opponent's on the right. And no, you can't tamper with this, it's permanent. The game uses tank controls. Really terrible ones too. Your movement is very slow, and you attack like you're underwater. The main goal of the game is to get 3 keys from your opponent and make it back to your teleporter. You can collect power-ups, weapons, set up traps, and do whatever you need to acquire those keys. It sounds pretty simple, except for one thing. The opponent's AI is insane. It often predicts your button inputs, and when you do something like try and shoot them, they'll just duck under your bullets every time you fire. And I do mean every single time. Same goes for melee combat, since the AI will automatically block your attacks as soon as you press the punch button. You also jump over traps, get the upper hand, and your attacks barely make contact with them because the game has no lock-on function. So prepare to lose. A lot. Even this video where I cribbed all this footage from has the poor player losing every single round to the AI. So much a win the hero carries recognition.
So who likes boobies? Because the next game has plenty of them. Fighting Angels, or as it's called in Japan, the cat fight, Jonaku Densetsu, which the name translates to the cat fight. It's Spawn 55 in a similar 2000 series, once again developed by our friends at Tamsoft. This one's a fighting game where a bunch of women in bikinis fight each other at the beach in front of a crowd. And that's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
If you've ever played a free-roaming 3D fighting game, this one should be pretty simple to understand. You run around and beat up your opponent. Simple stuff. You also switch around for weapons are allowed, meaning you can use stuff like a sword, even a machine gun. Well, I'm no expert on fighting games, so I can't exactly talk about how in-depth the mechanics are, or if there should have been more combos or features or whatnot. That's left for other people to decide. So I'm just going to show you a match, and you'll get the gist of it.
I'm Mona. Please be gentle with me. I'm Erica, the charisma race queen, whatever that means. Could this be the joy that one feels after a victory? Mona is happy. Who's up for some survival horror? Because next up is The Overwhelming Hell. As it's called in Japan, the Taiyo Jigoku, which is a direct translation of the English title. This is volume 113 of the Cinema 2000 series, and this will be the last you'll see of Tamsoft's involvement in this panel. After this is uncharted developer territory. So goodbye, Tamsoft, you've entertained us well. Now, unlike the previous games, this one has never seen a release outside Japan. The plot focuses on the high school girl Erica, who, while looking for a missing cell phone at her high school during nighttime, encounters a talking white rabbit who has a phone. While chasing him, Erica winds up entering a portal to a hellish dimension, which is full of all kinds of creepy crawlies. Seriously, I hope none of you are afraid of bugs or other small creatures.
So yeah, the premise of the game is basically Alice in Wonderland. A young girl walks around, chases after a white rabbit in a suit, and then goes into a portal to a nightmare realm full of the worst fears. Just like Lewis Carroll envisioned. The basic gameplay is as follows. You walk around the environment looking for keys and other items to progress, while avoiding all kinds of creepy crawlies. Swarms of insects and other critters are waiting to gain up on you at a moment's notice, so you need to sneak past them. Now, you don't have a conventional health bar. Instead, you have a stress meter. If the creatures notice you, they'll attack you. And if you don't get them off of you by mashing buttons, your stress meter fills up until you literally die of fright. But you can fight back, either by whacking them with weapons that break after a few hits, spraying them with a special bug spray, or just by simply jumping on them. Well, they are bugs. You can also pick up enemy corpses and throw them in order to solve puzzles. You will also need to sneak up behind the rabbit at various points to capture him in order to acquire items. It's kind of like a horror version of Mario 64. Every level has a boss fight, which after you defeat, you teleport back to the school. We have to locate the next portal in order to progress. Now there are multiple enemies to this game. To get them depends on how many of the rabbit's legs you collect and how many enemies you've thrown. It's pretty random, but I guess that's how it goes in hell.
Alright, I want to give you all a brief intermission from deeply produced games. Because they weren't the only game in town, so to say, for Shovelware, I'm going to take you guys back in time with 5 simple words. Remember Xbox Live indie games? Okay, for those who aren't familiar, the Xbox used to have a thing where independent game developers could upload their games to Microsoft's store, Xbox Live, under the indie game brand, with most games costing about $1. Which had been a haven for independent developers trying to make a name for themselves, turned into a nightmare, and we got a ton of garbage games that were thrown together in 5 minutes and uploaded without Microsoft supervision. Just about anything got on the store page. And as a result, we got a ton of shovelware. As such, the service lasted from 2010 to 2017, with Microsoft's use and support of it once the Xbox One was announced in 2013. The brand lingered on in obscurity until it was wiped completely. Nowadays, you can't even play the games. They're all gone. And of course, not even Japanese developers were innocent here. Now, despite the fact that the Xbox is never big in Japan, plenty of Japanese devs have contributed to the chaos that is the Xbox Live indie game section. So let me introduce you all to one of them, Rushing Punch. Developed by the one-man team known as Divider, who seems to have not made anything else since this game's release, Rushing Punch was released on Xbox Live indie game in 2011. Now, if you couldn't tell from the box art, this game has a really intricate premise. The plot, according to the game's official description, is as follows. 3D fighting game. Attack all enemies with your punch. There are 6 stages. Pretty complex story for an Xbox Live indie game standards.
Rushing Punch was a game previously priced at $1, but if you ask me, that was still too expensive. You control Hager, some guy who has to defend the land from some randos who felt like attacking him in a day. As this is a 3D beat 'em up, Hager can perform the standard punches and special moves to clear crowds. You can also pick people up and throw them at others. The hit detection is also about as good as you'd expect from a game like this, and the AI barely even tries. The entire game is an enemy rush. We have to defeat everybody and move on to the next level. We will then be repeating the exact same stuff each and every single time. But once you get further into the level, you're suddenly battling skeletons! Ooh! Either way, you'll need to stop these skeletons from fighting by, you guessed it, beating the crap out of them. Great gameplay. Any reward for beating the game? Well, get ready to have your minds blown. What? We're expecting something more?
Thanks for playing. Well, thank you, Divider. You're the real superstar here, wherever you are. Anyway, that was fun. Now back to D3 games. With our next title, The Mini Skirt Police. As it's called in Japan, the Mini Bijou Ikkicon, which is 188 of the Simple 2000 series. Developed by Daft, a studio who made Japanese licensed games like Super Bad to the Future 2, the game's about policeman Momo Samejima, who must track down a dwarf Yakuza boss who is in the process of releasing a deadly drug known as heroin. Like the overwhelming hell, this game has never left the East. And you can probably see why.
Is this fourth part important? Yes.
驚異のスピードで蔓延したピロジン。今も多くの犠牲 者を生み出している。
Yeah, let's skip this.
This is all from eternity.
The basic gist of the game is this. You roam around numerous areas tailing this guy while beating up his cronies. The gameplay, which is apparently modeled after Rockstar's Manhunt, is more of a stealth game with combat straight from a janky beat 'em up. You sneak up on enemies from behind and, rather than having a more conventional stealth takedown move, you charge up and attack and unleash it on unsuspecting opponents. A bit much, to say the least. But even then, that's the least of the game's problems. Because when you actually have to get up close to fight an enemy, holy crap. Combat is a mess. Enemies take a ridiculous amount of hits, your attacks do very little damage and can be interrupted, and enemies can combo you because of the game's clunky mechanics making it hard to actually hit them. You do have guns and grenades, but they're very limited, making them better for crowd control when you have too many guys surrounding you. Now the game's difficulty could be a way to encourage sneaking up behind enemies to get a drop on them. After all, there are plenty of points in the game where stealth is all but mandatory, but it could also be a way to show off the game's main selling point. Yep, one of the game's biggest features is that the more damage you take, the more clothes you lose, until you're on the cusp of dying in your undies. Even the official trailer highlights this.
激しいバトルを繰り広げればコスチュームはボロボロに。最後はサービス満点のビキニ姿にまでなっちゃう。なんで美人なんだよとか細かいことを気にしてるやつは誰だ？
The game's boss fights, though, are insane. The first one is this big gimp guy who you defeat by sneaking up behind him and kicking him in the crowd a bunch of times. The second one is this gimp woman who you have to defeat by luring her into grenades. And this clown guy shows up out of nowhere. He's the final boss. You defeat him, what I assume bombshell of a cutscene plays, and then credits.
By the way, the dwarf guy just leaves.
So this all starts making more sense once you know who made this game. I want you to guess what the game's new designer made prior to this. Just take a wild, random, crazy guess. Give up? You can't make this stuff up.
Yes, from the creators of Hong Kong 97, the miniskirt police. Now for something a bit more chaste. Battle Bomb Pui Pui, aka the Tyson Bakudon Pui Pui. This game is the 17th installment in the Simple 2000 Series Ultimate. Developed by Flat Out Games, a company who hasn't done anything of note other than a one-piece fighting game for the PlayStation 2. The game also never saw a Western release, and the premise is that the game is set in the year 20XX. A supercomputer gets the idea to gather a bunch of random people to have to compete inside of a virtual tournament where they must throw bombs at each other.
Ever played Bomberman? Well, think of this game as that, but quote-unquote photorealistic. After you get a description of the game's entire plot, you can choose between several different characters. Once you pick your favorite, you drop into the game. In single player, it's you versus the AI, where you have to defeat a specific number of your opponents to win. And to accomplish that task requires gathering up a crap load of bombs, or sometimes becoming one. Can't be too picky. The bombs have a timer that count down once they're in use, so you need to chuck them or roll them like a bowling ball before the countdown reaches 0. Depending on the timer, you can also pick up thrown bombs and toss them back at your opponents. And if you get hit while carrying a whole lot of bombs, well, expect some fireworks. Power-ups exist that can either help or hinder your playstyle. Some help you move faster and give you invincibility, while others knock you off for 20 seconds unless you mash buttons, or create barriers that slow down time. There are also plenty of bomb types to collect. There's the football bomb that bounces around all over the place upon being thrown, mines that like timers so you can throw them whenever you want, and question mark bombs that give you a random type of bomb, usually an ordinary bomb. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it's still a better Bomberman game than Act Zero. Got him.
To continue with the theme of absurd premises, the maid, uniform, and machine gun, or as it's called in Japan, the Meido Fukuto Kakanju, which is volume 105 of the Simple 2000 series. Developed by Ridian, formerly known for JRPGs like the Mercenary Saga games, this is yet another game set in Japan. But unlike the previous few games, this one actually has an English grand translation that was released in 23. But would you want to play it? Well, let me go briefly over the plot. It's basically Terminator 2 meets Mahoramatic.
Well, we go a bit more into detail. The plot is basically about these two bad guys, Combat Butler Master Gerald and Battle-Mate Android Laura, who travel back in time to try and brainwash the younger version of Dr. Misaki, who will give them the inventions needed to create a time paradox that will allow them to conquer time itself. Which, I don't know, you could have gotten a little more creative with your plan, guys. You have time travel, don't you want to go back and kill a mosquito or kill a fish or something?
Oh, I wish I had killed that fish.
So the present day Misaki makes his own robot android waifu, Yuki, to go back in time to protect his younger self. Yuki, despite being awakened a few seconds ago, does the basics of gun and swordplay, and will use her abilities to protect her young master. It's a very basic anime plot you haven't already seen before. Don't expect any serious twists or turns, it's relatively straightforward. Just like the gameplay, which could be described as basic Devil May Cry. Yuki can use guns and swords to beat enemies, and even has a special screen nuke move, which he pulls out a rocket launcher. Combos exist and require precise timing to achieve. You're ranked after every level, but oddly, your rank decreases the more you use your guns. Despite that, one rack up good ranks in order to get bigger and better guns, which you can then upgrade. The game also attempts variety. Sometimes you're playing in situations where you need to fend off faraway targets, or you're speeding along the highway gunning down everybody in your way. You're still shooting things, but it's at least trying to be different. Overall, the gameplay is best described as baby's first action game, where you can play it fine, but there's obviously better action games out there. But shout out to Ridian for giving a special thanks to our freaking porn company. It's good to know they have nice taste.
Indeed they do. Alrighty, this will be the final one to showcase, and it's a doozy. It's a doozy. The Sniper 2, whose name in Japanese is The Sniper 2. It is volume 16 in the Simple 2000 series, and developed by the ironically named Best Media, who made primarily Simple 2 series games and one original visual novel. The Sniper 2 is, as you can guess, a sequel to The Sniper, which was a Simple 1500 title from 2001, which has yet to be given an English release or translation. But while that previous game's limitations were part of the charm, given it was for an older console with older hardware, this one, though, no. The plot involves former fireman and mob sniper Harry Spencer, the protagonist of the previous game, going on a run from criminals alongside his girlfriend CA. After picking up the stranded mechanic Stanley Jones, they stumble upon a political conspiracy plot that involves a deadly virus known as Tackle McCann, a mysterious hitman sunglasses, and a lot of really crappy jazz music. Now, if you couldn't tell already, Sniper 2 is considered to be, by many, to be one of the worst games of all time, and the worst game in the Simple series, which is really saying something considering everything I've shown y'all. But even this description only scratches the surface of what this game has to offer.
Sniper 2 is a miracle of a game because of how terrible it is. It's a game so bad that its official PlayStation Store description makes fun of the game. Let me repeat, the official PlayStation Store description is actively making fun of a game that it's trying to get you to spend money on. Every little thing that can be bad is really bad. It's one of those games where you already know what you're in for upon watching the first cutscene. No, your eyes don't deceive you. The graphics are quite dated, even for 2003 standards, which saw the release of Prince of Persia: Sands of Time and Silent Hill 3. So the gameplay is clunky. I mean, it's relatively simple. Just aim at who you want to shoot and fire. The game especially accomplished tasks like shooting a guy inside a building using only 2 bullets, with very little room for error. And it won't take you a while, since the game expects you to know who or what you're aiming at. You give them pictures of your targets, but because the graphics are so simple, it's hard to differentiate who your target is. You're ranked after every mission, and these are actually detrimental to the story's progression, because certain rankings will take you down a different path and affect the ending. Get a low rank, you're going down the normal route. Get a high rank, and you're on your way to a new stage and the good ending. Though don't get your hopes up, the game's still very linear. You're always destined to end up at the same final level every time. So with the gameplay out of the way, can we talk about the story? Because holy crap, this tries so hard to be a spy conspiracy plot a la Metal Gear Solid, but it doesn't come close to reaching it. Words can't describe it. So how about I just show you all the highlights?
Not someone's day, is it? Sorry, kid.
Why didn't you stop and help him?
We're on the run, remember? We can't afford to stand out and take risks.
So we just leave him stranded in the middle of the desert? I don't get the feeling that many cars come this way, and even if another one does, it'll probably just drive right past as well. I thought you were a better person than that.
Look, right now.
Right now has nothing to do with this. If this mess is going to make you stop being yourself, maybe you should just get caught.
You're right, Sam. I have had my revenge. I don't have to live like that anymore. To be on edge all the time.
Jim, where did he?
Seems they don't call you Thunderbolts for nothing. That's the first time I've ever missed it, my old friend.
Wow, thanks. I'm safe. Name's Stanley Jones. I'm a precision engineer for Aquarium Electronics.
An engineer? I would have thought an engineer could handle a little car trouble.
Yeah, me too, but that hook of scrap is far beyond even my skills. You know them doctors that get sick because they don't look after themselves? Now I know how they feel.
I'm Harry Spencer, former firefighter.
I'm Claire Anderson, but people normally call me CA. I'm hungry too. Let's get something to eat.
I recommend the chicken special. There's like a miles around. Ouch. Hey, watch where you... I'm very sorry. Ooh, scary guy.
What's next, Harry? Harry? What's up?
Huh? Oh, that guy. The one Stanley bumped into back there.
Oh, him. He was a little scary. You know who he is?
No. But he smells the same as I do.
Harry, you don't smell.
I mean, the smell of killing. And there's pain in his eyes.
Harry!
Just stay where you are. Damn. How'd they find me?
They certainly give a warm reception anyway. How come they're so happy to see you?
Don't call me boss.
That sounds cool, okay?
Stan, use this.
Abby.
CA.
Harry! No!
Hey, it's that guy again.
CA.
Nice. Tell the truth of one person.
Who is that guy? Damn. The girl called Abby of the Diamonds investigated for the CIA. She was working undercover in order to catch one Gabriel Armitage. Coincidentally, as well as being an assassin of renowned skill in the underworld, this Gabriel was also a mysterious man who just carried CA off. So whilst I thought those mafia thugs were gunning for me, it seems they were actually cleaners dispatched by the family to take out Gabriel. One more thing. That gas we just breathed in is a nasty little biological weapon called Ikkicon, developed in secret somewhere in America. Within 10 days of exposure, victims fall ill and then suffer rapid physiological breakdown. So in exchange for getting CA's location from Abby, we're going to be giving her a hand retrieving this bioweapon.
Everybody got that?
You've done well to get this far. What are you doing here? I've had a change of heart.
Quick, give us the antidote. Now. Well, tell us what you did.
So that's the word she fed you. I don't have it.
Huh? Don't tell me you did. No. So it's our fate just to die?
This antidote that you're searching for, it never existed in the first place. You're lying. You have to be infected as well. CA! You're right. All of us here breathe in Taco McCann gas. And the younger the victim, the faster the Taco McCann acts. However, she's still fine. Now, how could that be?
She has some kind of Taco McCann resistance? Antibodies?
She was used in government experiments. The DNA was altered, adapted, and the DNA for Taco McCann antibodies added to her system. Genetic manipulation, huh? So that has something to do with her having Claire's memories. Also, I personally don't believe it. It may be that CA is under the influence of the residual memories of the murder. They're about to get serious. They're planning on using a missile with Taco McCann warhead. Taco McCann. CA, let's move.
Okay.
Stanley! You okay? Don't talk. Save your strength.
What? I will need my
Figured it out. You said you hit a gun because you were a pretty good shot. You know, hacking at security systems, more than a new engineer would do. Also, the way you appeared like that, timing was just too perfect.
What?
Guess I was guiding her.
showing up. I was unexpected. Oh, me and still haven't been the same world. There was a missile.
failed to protect someone. Again.
Harry.
They're going to pay for this.
Okay, final boss of the normal path. Here we go.
Not quite.
Hey, where are you going?
You haven't worked it out yet, have you? I'm just going back for something.
You never saw Gabriel in
Rip Stanley. So, in conclusion, Japanese shovelware is a bit more unique than Western ones, often feeling like misguided indie games and blatant cash cows that rely on brand recognition. Nonetheless, despite a great majority of the titles we've covered being released during the 2000s, there will always be shovelware titles released every year. It's a money-generating business practice that shows no sign of stopping. Because no matter how advanced modern Japanese games feel, there will always be shovelware budget titles that can be found in the cracks of the Japanese game industry. However, that's not the end of the story. I spent the last hour showing you how small budget games are often a bad thing, how Wacky sets to use as crutches for very basic gameplay. But I don't want to leave you all in despair, because a low budget doesn't automatically equal crap. Not every Japanese budget title is shovelware, or hell, not every game with a small budget is bad. The Japanese games industry has pumped out thousands of unique titles, whether it be from big AAA studios or small studios trying to get their foot in the door. Many budget titles over there don't count as shovelware, as they weren't made for the sake of quantity and profit, but to express a team's artistic vision. There are games from Japan like Deadly Premonition, a game from 2010 that, despite looking and feeling like it came out a decade prior, spent many years in development and has achieved cult classic status despite its many issues for its engaging story and charming characters. Or even titles like Katamari Damacy. This game was made by 10 people for less than $1 million, who banked on a bizarre premise and got an entire franchise out of it. Or even obscure Japan-only titles like Heiko, Kino's Crusher, where you play as a salaryman who gets stung by an alien bug that causes you to progressively grow into a giant monster that stomps around Tokyo and New York and has multiple endings straight out of an art house movie. I mean, no ordinary person can make a game this weird and expect it to make money. Now, all these games were made despite the budget they were given and the resources they had. Most importantly, they had heart. The developers behind them genuinely believed in their games, despite the obstacles in their path. They didn't have the most experienced programmers on the team, their games got barely any marketing, and some were even close to cancellation. But it was the passion of the developers that got them made, and why they were remembered fondly by those who played them, despite the shortcomings. Because let's face it, the simple series is by all accounts shovelware. They were made solely to make D3 money, the gameplay is often very shallow, and since there are so many installments, each entry comes across as very disposable, something you play for a few hours and toss aside. It's series made on an assembly line that uses gimmicks, derivative premises, and sex appeal to get attention from potential buyers, with quality control often an afterthought. These games, even the decent ones, weren't really made with heart, but with intent to ship out a somewhat playful product. At best, they're curiosities, nothing you hadn't experienced in other better-made games. Even Rushing Punch, the one non-D3 game I showed y'all, wasn't made for the sake of entertainment or providing a good experience, but a hasty attempt to capitalize off of a growing brand, a way to get something, anything, on the online marketplace. That's how you don't make it in the industry. Certain games are memorable despite the low budgets, and deserve to be played for the experience alone. And that's because the stories, characters, and settings are fascinating, unlike the games we covered, whose contents were superficial at best. Games take time and effort to make, no matter how how many people you have on your team. And to practice Shovelware Studios at D3 is discouraged for the most part. Now, if there's anything you can take away from this panel, is that for those who have an idea for a game, no matter how weird it is, just because it doesn't have a lot of money behind it, doesn't mean you'll add to a pile of shovelware. Because anybody with enough passion can create magic on minimal dollars, no matter the finished product. Just don't make the Sniper 2 again. Please. Thanks, everybody.